Welcome to being at home with George during COVID. As usual, it's an exciting time. It's a day of renewal. Possibilities are abounding. The present moment is pregnant with possibility. And so I'd like to use this time to really think about how we can use the now to live into a future that we're excited about. And so, as you may recall, or for new people, this is about creating the possibility of being able to both embrace whatever comes up, the fear, the pain, the frustration, the love, the compassion, and at the same time generating the hope. And so today I'd like to talk about this idea of just living in the solution and creating a vision of that we can live into that pulls us towards it, that we can get excited about and look forward to. And the way that I learned how to do that is interesting because when I got into recovery, and here's what happens is when you start seeing life on life's terms and you start getting the information, what happened to me is I could become very cynical because it seems overwhelming, the obstacles that were in front of me. And what I had to learn was this idea of accepting what's there, but at the same time generating a hope and focusing on the solution, living in the solution and not in the problem. And it's interesting because people will talk about how bad things are, and that's the embracing part of it. But the generating hope is what can we do? How can we make things better? What kind of future can we create where it pulls us into it? We believe it in, or it pulls us towards it. We live into the future we see. And so if we focus on a solution and talk about, well, how do we do this instead of saying, why is this happening? How can we make things better? How can we access the masterpiece within? And then understanding that we are resilient and that we are capable of overcoming difficulties, injuries, setbacks, and addictions. And for myself, that's what I had to come through. When I came to and I realized that I had chronic pain, I had to be able to embrace it and then say, how can I manage that? What's the solution? How do I live in the solution? And that's when I started understanding the mind-body process. And that's when I started cultivating the five superpowers. It started off with a simple concept of the three C's, to see things as a challenge and to be committed to growth and control, that no matter what happens to me, with the superpowers and other practices, whatever practice allows me to create space between stimulus and response, so that in that space I have the freedom and power to choose what I'm doing. So how I'm choosing this moment, how I am investing in this moment rather than spending. Spending would be just saying things and without it having an intentionality or purpose to it. But this is the time that we can really start to be clear about, well, who do we want to be and where do we want to go? And so for me, just recognition of the fact that we have this masterpiece, we are wired for success in how we direct our attention, what goals we set, what thoughts we allow to occupy our mental space. I like to think about health or wholeness as being, something integrated. So for me, it's having my mind, my body, my heart, and my spirit or soul alignment and exercising those four endowments of being. And so now I'm talking about the mental component and thinking about things and living in solution. What is the solution? How do we get through this? How did I overcome my addictions, and how did I continue to overcome the challenges and the difficulties we have, like COVID right now? We've been talking about this, and now that we have a vaccine, there's still things to be done, but we have to start living in the solution instead of focusing on what could go wrong or trying to use the blame game or denying what's happening, because those are the two things that prevent me from taking responsibility and understanding that let it begin with me, let it begin now. And how about focusing on what I want, not on what I don't want, living in the solution and not in the problem. And so for me, it's always about, okay, so how can I be present now, and what do I need to deal with? How can I be of service? What's in front of me that I need to embrace and make a choice, a wise choice in terms of moving forward, moving into a point where we're going to get out of this COVID. So I like to say, and we've been talking about it, So how do I use my time now? Because I can't be doing what I'm normally doing. But if I focus on being, then if I take care of the being, when the doing comes, I hit the ground with both feet running and the heart humming. And so this is more about connecting with myself and connecting with others, and having those conversations, what I would call like a championship conversation, the how-to conversations. How can we make schools safer? How can we get vaccinations for more people? And how can we have people who are in harm's way, whether they're the essential workers or teachers or people who have pre-existing conditions? How can we vaccinate others? So that's like taking a vaccine, but there's a mental vaccine that we could be taking now, and that has to do with not letting the disease or the virus of being cynical, of not being able to look at things. And even though things aren't where we are, you could say that we seem to be very divided. By thinking that and seeing that, okay, we're divided, we're always going to be divided, that's living in the problem. Living in the solution is, okay, we have a lot in common, so let's focus on what brings us together, what we can agree on, and then build out of that. And so if we can agree that we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that we don't have to blame others and then be violent with others. And you think about, I'm concerned about the violence against Asian Americans right now because of some perceived threat, and we're forgetting that we're connected to them. I and the other are one, and just like me, they want to be happy, they want to be of service. And so we could say that about whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or conservative, whatever. We have to get to the point that we are better when we're together, and that we have to connect with our basic human kindness. And how about mutual benefit, mutual respect, and how about listening to each other and getting to a place where we can build a future we both feel we can live into, or that we move towards that future. Because if we don't see much of a future, then we're going to operate, we're going to behave in the problem and not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so all of these setbacks, these overcoming these difficulties, is what helps us to develop what they call strong self-efficacy belief or resilience. And so we have to think about that right now. It's a perfect opportunity to start thinking about all the people, not just Wall Street, but Main Street, not just people that think like me, but people that don't think like me, not just people that look like me, but people that don't look like me. And so we could start to just say that, why don't I act like the person has a masterpiece? And I'm not saying let somebody disabuse us or abuse us or treat us badly. I'm just saying, why don't we start off with the basic premise that we all are in this together, and we all have the right to exist and to pursue liberty, life, and happiness. And so that's what I had to do when I started this process. I had to get to the place where I was focusing on living a life that was moving towards wellness, greater and greater levels of wellness. How can I take care of myself and then help others do the same, and just share my experience, strength, and hope in a way where people see that the possibility of living into a future that we believe in and that we feel good about, that can generate a lot of positive feelings. And so like joy, for instance, like the joy, when we think about it, if we go back to when we believed in Santa Claus and it was Christmas on Christmas Eve, because Christmas was coming, we couldn't wait to wake up and to partake of the Christmas gifts and presents and that sort of thing. And so we could do the same. Can we create a Christmas, if you will, metaphorically, that we can live into? And in spite of everything that's happening, that's why when I talk about the five superpowers, that when we have a lot of information, a lot of insight, and we don't have it balanced with confidence, with trust, or what I call hope and optimism, then we become cynical. And if we have too much trust and not enough know-how or verification, then it becomes Pollyanna-ish. So we have to understand that in spite of the fact we know that we're up against tremendous odds, we have to raise our hope, our optimism, our trust, our confidence, so that we can be on par for that. And we can see that there are solutions. And we have to look closely, because sometimes we're looking through the same lens of divisiveness or fear. And we got to get out of the fear and get into the love and see that when we're coming from a place of love, when we're coming from a place of open heart, open mind, then the solutions become self-evident. And then it's a focus on how do we stay focused on there when we're addicted to pathology or seeing what's wrong and wanting to blame or deny what's happening rather than being open to it and say, can I take care of my piece of this existence of my experience and bring a light into it, be a light to myself and others, and to really talk about or seeing people and greeting them as a fellow human being that has a right for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.